Right, so this is a short video on how to connect your feet into your core. It's an exercise that I teach all my runners before they go out for a run. It's really useful. It's about connecting the feet into the core to give you more stability as you run. It's especially useful if you do have pelvic floor issues and you are still running. It can just help bring everything kind of into play. And the reason behind that is there are nerves that come out of the lower spine that not only feed into the pelvic floor, they also feed into the really small muscles of the feet. So the muscles that live inside the feet, not the biggies that kind of come out and up the leg, the little muscles of the feet that sometimes get a little bit neglected. So it's a good sequence before you go out running. Like I say, it can bring in some stability, connects your feet, gets them working, and gets your mind or your brain kind of involved in what's going on with the feet and pelvic floor and your centre, which is your base of support. So there's going to be three elements to this. We're going to look at just drawing in and up of the pelvic floor, so connecting the floor and the deeper core muscles. We're going to look at the feet and the activation of the feet, and then we're going to look at breathing, and then we're going to bring all three together to what will be a short sequence for you to do before you go out running. You do want to be barefoot as you do this, so I can't really get that sensation of working the feet. So to start with, working on the pelvic floor and the deeper abdominal muscles first, come to standing with your feet hip distance apart, pointing straight ahead, and you want to bring your hands onto your pelvis. So I like to use 2 or 3 fingers, kind of point them in towards my belly button, and I find those bony points of the front of the pelvis, and then you're going to let your fingers kind of slide off those bony points so that they're actually in your squidgy bits. You don't need to press particularly hard, just a gentle inward pressure. And you should find, like I say, you should find that you've got this sort of squidginess on the inside of your bony pelvis. From there, just concentrate on drawing up the pelvic floor. So you might think about that as the front passage and then the back passage, or maybe the back passage is easier for you and then the front passage, or maybe you're lacking a little bit of sensation and that's okay, all right, but we've got to start somewhere. So as you draw up the front and the back, preferably together, but either or is fine. Just see if you can get a sense of drawing in or bulging slightly under your fingertips. Now obviously you're not feeling the pelvic floor work here because it doesn't connect that high up. We're actually feeling the contraction of a deeper abdominal muscle. It's transverse abdominis. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what it's called, but it contracts at the same time as the pelvic floor, in theory, for most of us. So as you draw up the pelvic floor, that muscle engages, and you might feel a sense of kind of lifting under your fingers, or almost a sensation of drawing in across the hip bones. Either way, it feels different for everybody. So drawing up, front and back passage, feel the sensation under the fingertips if you can, and then release. Drawing up and release. Drawing up and release. And there should be anything else moving. Drawing up and release. Drawing up and release. And if you can't get a sensation of anything happening in the inside of your hip bones, it can be sometimes useful to lie on your back so things are a little bit more relaxed. So you lie on your back, knees bent, feet flat, and try it again there, and you might get a sensation. It's quite subtle. And when you're standing, obviously your centre and everything is actually involved in standing, so it can be difficult to feel it. So sometimes it's easier to feel it lying down. But the upshot is, all we're doing is essentially a Kegel. You're lifting your pelvic floor up and then relaxing it down. Lifting it up and relaxing it down. That's it. There's nothing more spectacular than that. And just knowing that as you draw the pelvic floor up, there is an engagement of your sort of deeper core muscles, if you like, as well. All right. So when we come to the feet, the second part of this is an exercise called the short foot. It's been around for a while. It's a useful exercise for engaging the little muscles of the feet. So those same muscles that are fed by the nerves out of the lower back that feed into the pelvic floor, feed into the feet. So there's this direct relationship, if you like. You can use one to get to the other. And feet and pelvic floor are definitely connected. So short foot exercise. I'm still hip distance apart with my feet. I'm turning sideways on so you can see better. And I'm separating the feet. Not a massive scissor, just a little one. Separating the feet, slight bend in the knee. And from here you want to get a sense of the tripod of the foot, and your tripod is the base of the big toe, the base of the little toe, and the centre of the heel at the back. So on both feet, you're going to lift the toes, spread them out as best you can, and then place them back down, and then have equal weight over both feet and your tripod. So from there, the movement itself is to push straight down with the toes. And I'm doing it with my hands so you can see what's happening at the foot, or what should be happening at the foot. So there's my foot flat. I press the big, well, not the big toe, all the toes, press all the toes down into the floor, and you get this lifting sensation. Lifting of the arch and a lifting of the base of the big toe here. All of this should lift, and it should feel like you're doing some work. Those little muscles, I'll bring my hand back here, little muscles of the feet should feel like they're activating. Now what it isn't, it's not a clawing motion. It's not that motion, that curling of the toes. I'm not trying to drag the floor towards me. I'm trying to push straight down. So you can see when I do it with my hand was my foot is flat. I push straight down with my fingertips, and you can see how my hand kind of tense. Yeah, it tense and creates that space underneath my palm. That's the same as your foot. I'll see if I can get a little bit closer for you, see if this helps. And I'll come this side. Different foot, a little bit closer. All right, toes lift, toes spread, they come down. I've got the tripod, and then I'm going to press the toes straight down and release. Straight down and release. Like I said, no clawing action, it's just a press down. That does give you a little bit of a closer view, doesn't it? So as I press down, I get that lift under the base of my big toe here and all across the arch of the foot. And that's what you're after. And that's the smaller muscles of the foot getting engaged, or being engaged, to lift the arch. Yeah, so that's your close-up view. Let's get rid of them. So you can do both feet at once, particularly useful, you know, it's going to be a bit of a quicker exercise, it's just coordinating it all. You still want 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, lift the toes, spread them out, place them down, and then you're pressing both down into the floor, both sets of toes, and release. Press and release. Press and release. One more press and release, and then you turn around, you split the other way. Get me with lefts and rights sorted out. Same thing, lift the toes, spread them out, place them down, find your foot tripod, and press straight out with the toes. And release. Press and release. And by this point, you should feel that the feet are exerting some effort. You know, that you might get a little bit of cramp, or you might feel that your feet have done some work. And that's what we're after. They'll be nice and warm, getting some blood flow down there, just like working any other muscle. All right, so then we're going to bring the feet into the centre, so to speak. I'll connect the feet to the pelvic floor and your core. Pelvic floor and core. I'll go this way again, just because I find it easier to show you on that left leg. All right, so this time, same as before, you're going to lift the pelvic floor, and as you lift the pelvic floor, you're going to press down with the toes. That's all it is. So you're going to get this sense of up with the pelvic floor, down with the toes, and it's almost like a sense of drying up in space between those 2 points. You can bring your fingertips back to your squidgy bits if you want to, if that's helpful. It doesn't, not necessary, but it's nice to have something to do with your hands. So from here, knees bent, toes left, toes spread, place them down, and then start with the pelvic floor, lift the pelvic floor, press down with the toes, hold and release. Pelvic floor, toes, hold, release. Pelvic floor, toes, hold, release. Pelvic floor, toes, hold and release. And give your feet a little, need to have a little wander. I've been practicing this for a while, trying to get this video sorted, so my feet are aching a little bit. The final piece of the puzzle is the breath. So there is this We're going to use an exhale, and the reason why we use an exhale is when you inhale, your diaphragm moves down, it pushes on your abdominal organs, and therefore your pelvic floor moves down as well. So you get this downward pressure on an inhale. As you exhale, everything lifts back up again. So you've got this ebbing and flowing of the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, which is fine. What was I going to add to that? Something I was going to say. Oh yeah, the core as well. So as you breathe out, your deeper abdominal muscles engage gently when you're not doing anything to support you. So there is this natural way of your body moving or working, if you like. So diaphragm lowers, pelvic floor lowers on an inhale, but as you exhale, everything draws up and draws in, and that's the stability and the support. That's just how your body works. It's why, so for instance, when you do an exercise, you usually get instructed to breathe out on the effort. So if you're lifting something not super heavy, because you tend to hold your breath, but if you're lifting something heavy up, you tend to exhale on the movement in order to engage everything and keep your centre stable. Right, so that's why we're using the exhale for this. So we'll come back to our position, feet split, toes lifted, toes separate, come down. You've got your foot tripod, so you're nice and equally weighted around the foot. Soft knees, everything nice and stacked. You bring your fingers back to your squidgy bits if you like. This time you're going to take an inhale, and as you start to exhale, you lift the pelvic floor, you press the toes down, you exhale, 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 and then release. So inhale, start to exhale, pelvic floor, toes, exhale, exhale, and release. And you want to start your exhale before you lift the pelvic floor. So the start of the exhale comes first. So it's an inhale, exhale, pelvic floor, toes, hold, and release. Inhale, start the exhale, lift the pelvic floor, press the toes, finish your exhale, and release. Inhale, start your exhale, lift the pelvic floor, press the toes, exhale, finish your exhale, and release. And you do 10 on one side, turn around, do 10 on the other. And it's more of a way of connecting the brain to your core, to your pelvic floor, to your feet, and all the way back up again. Dead useful before you go out for a run, mainly because it gets the muscles of the feet working, and they're the things that are going to be connecting you to the ground that you're running on. It also gets your brain thinking about what's happening at pelvic floor and your centre. So you just bring in all those pieces into your running. Dead useful. Great if you've got pelvic floor issues that you want to kind of sort out when you run.